Okay, sweet. Well, hi everyone, and welcome to the Food Systems Leadership Network's Donation Station Cultivation 101 webinar. I am Annalena Kazikas with the Wallace Center. I help to facilitate the Food Systems Leadership Network. We are a national peer learning community of people from all over the country working to advance more just, equitable, and sustainable food systems.
Yeah, I'm over it now.
Cool. Just a reminder to stay muted. But wanted to share this slide with some fun photos, just as a reminder that there's like amazing people all over the country doing some great work. And it's always nice to see like smiling, laughing faces amidst the challenges and struggles of creating more equitable food systems. So in the next slide, just a little bit more about what the network actually does. And we bring people together. We bring people together to meet each other, to develop relationships, to learn, to collaborate, really taking a keen eye towards systems leadership. So how does the work that I do impact the greater system that we are all operating within, and vice versa? And then across all of our different programming, really advancing racial equity individually, organizationally, systemically, to help us in our mission of creating more just, equitable, and sustainable food systems. We have a variety of different services that we offer to advance each of these goals, whether it is mentorship or peer coaching or technical webinars like this one, really just creating a place to access and tap into different resources to help you do your jobs better. So today we are joined by FSLN member organization, Community Food Initiatives. We're going to talk a little bit more about their donation station program that they've been doing for over 10 years down in Ohio. And this project is brought to the network through one of our more recent strategies called the Cultivation grants, which we're there to really, catalyze connections between network members and facilitate more cross-network learning. So thank you to Susie, Mary Beth, and Reggie for being here. And I'm going to hand it over to you all to walk us through what you've been up to.
All right. Hello, everyone. We are so happy that you've joined us today. We are really excited to be here sharing with an audience of folks literally in the chat from coast to coast. We are so grateful to the Food Systems Leadership Network for this opportunity. And we are really looking forward to having some conversation and some exchange today during this webinar with all of you about this model and the work you're doing in your own community. So we're going to have some different times during the webinar where there's opportunities for sharing. We're going to have some polls. So please stay active in the chat. Really, we want this to be a conversation. If you joined us maybe a couple minutes after the hour, we are inviting folks to introduce themselves in the chat with your name, your pronouns, where you're from, and your organization and title. If you'd like to share that in the chat, that'd be great, just so we can kind of see where people are coming in from. And I will go ahead and introduce myself out loud. My name is Mary Beth Tanner. I go by she, her pronouns. I'm the executive director at Community Food Initiatives in Athens, Ohio. I've been in this role about a year, and I am going to turn it over to Susie.
Hi everyone, I'm Susie Hoosier. I'm the Director of Outreach at CFI. I use she, her pronouns. This is my 5th summer at CFI. I started as the Director of the Donation Station and transitioned to this role in January of 2022. And I'll pass it to Reggie.
Hi y'all, my name is Reginald Morrow. I am the Donation Station Program Manager. I use he, him pronouns. I've been with Community Food Initiatives originally as a ComCore, AmeriCorps service member, and transitioned over to employment.
Awesome, thank you all. And Susie, can you advance us to the next slide? So we wanted to start by just telling you a little bit of context about who we are and kind of how we came to this work. So Community Food Initiatives, or CFI, is based in Appalachian, Ohio, in Athens, Ohio. And I saw a couple folks in the chat that have Athens connections, so we love to see that. So we're located in Southeast Ohio. We are a grassroots, small community-based nonprofit. We have been in existence since 1992, officially incorporated since 1995. And our mission is to foster communities where everyone has equitable access to healthy local food. We work in a region where there are high rates of poverty and food insecurity. So Athens County, Ohio is among the highest rates in the state of Ohio for food insecurity, which itself is higher than average within the US for rates of food insecurity. And so one of the things that we are really trying to bridge is the gap between living in a community with lots of assets, lots of knowledge, like beautiful productive land, lots of growers, wonderful things, but then having the challenge that not everyone in the community has access to those resources. So that's the work that we do. Our work connects communities with healthy local food. We do this through a variety of programs. The donation station is one of them, and that's what we're going to focus on today. We also have education, community gardens, school-based programs, food justice discussions, food access mapping. We have a mobile produce market. So there's a lot of different pieces, but we are focusing today on the donation station. And I will go ahead and kind of turn this over. We are going to start by asking you all for a little bit of information and context to help frame our conversation. So I'll turn it over to Susie.
Thanks, Mary Beth. Just like she was saying, we're so excited to connect with you all today. We wanted to learn more about where you all are coming from. So we have a couple quick questions, and Mary Beth, if you want to launch the polls, we could do that. But just a couple quick questions to see where you all are coming from today.
This is the most nerve-wracking part of a webinar. So hopefully you all are seeing a poll pop up on your screen. All right.
We're not seeing it populate on our screen. Is it populating on yours?
It looks like some people are answering. I'm getting some real time that 21 people have participated. So we haven't shared the results out yet. So once you answer, there'll be a pause.
Ah, okay. I thought you were saying.
Oh yeah, sorry. No, we're keeping it a secret. No, not really. We will share these results back out for you as soon as everyone's had a chance to answer. Great question. We'll wait just one more minute. It looks like at least about 2/3 of folks have had a chance to answer. And we know, I think this poll might have gotten set up as a single answer question. So we know folks may be working in several of these areas. So if you just choose the one that maybe you're most closely associated with, or you would say is kind of the majority of your work. All right. We are really close to everybody. So I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. And I'm going to go ahead and share back out those results. So I don't know if, all right, here, now I'm going to check. Can you now see the poll results on your screen? So you can see, it looks like we have a lot of folks working in farmer support as a big part of their mission. Folks are also doing gardens, some things that maybe don't quite fall into any of these categories. Cooking and nutrition education is a big piece. And then policy, pantries, and other things are also in there at smaller numbers. It is not surprising that the majority of folks who answered are providing farmer gardener support already, and that's wonderful because that's the kind of thing that we're going to help talk about together, how you can build on that, and some insight that we might be able to share about that. It's wonderful to see that people are also, about 1/4 of the folks who answered are already regularly purchasing or receiving produce directly from farmers. So it seems like we have some great pieces to build on as we go into this conversation today.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for participating in that. I am going to, so next up, we're going to dive into what you all registered for today, which is learning more about the donation station model. And I need to switch tabs here. We have a super short video to share with you. that will go over some of the basics of the donation station model. And I'll see if I can do this here. Okay, can y'all see the video? Hello, thanks so much for your interest.
Oh, Susie, I think you have to stay unmuted for us to hear it.
Okay, sorry. I'll start it. Hello, thanks so much for your interest in Donation Station. Donation Station is a food access program at Community Food Initiatives that's super simple and yet radical enough to help us work towards creating systems level change to our food system. Community Food Initiatives, or CFI, is a nonprofit based in Southeast Ohio, and our vision is a resilient region where everyone has access to an equitable, inclusive, and thriving local food system. So with all of our programs, we're trying to cultivate access to local food, whether that's food people grow on their own or food farmers and gardeners grow. So how does Donation Station do this? Well, Donation Station functions basically like a food bank, but we focus on distributing nourishing food that's grown or produced locally. We purchase produce from farmers and accept donations of produce and then distribute that healthy food to food access partners like free meal sites, libraries, healthcare providers, churches, and schools. We distribute about 70,000 pounds of food a year, which means that since 2014, we've distributed 697,643 pounds of locally grown or produced food. Because we purchase and distribute fresh produce from local farmers, as well as accepting donated produce, we're supporting our local food producers, reducing our reliance on the global food system and on fossil fuels that go into transporting food across the country or continent, and reducing food waste, all while providing access to healthy food that is going to nourish bodies and minds from garden plot to plate. This means the Donation Station doesn't just fight hunger, but works to build long-term food security from the ground up. We partner with our local farmers market to make this as simple as possible. So CFI's Donation Station has a permanent booth at the Athens Farmers Market. So we're there every market all year long. We set out our donation jar. Anyone visiting the market can drop in money. We use that money to buy food from the vendors at the market. We accept donated produce at the end of market if farmers didn't sell out, and then we haul the produce back to a warehouse where we store it until our distribution. We also go to a local produce auction, the Chester Hill Produce Auction in Chester Hill, Ohio, which is a project by our partners at Rural Action, where food is auctioned off and we can sometimes buy large quantities of food at a lower cost. So here too, the community pitches in. People can donate food that they buy to Donation Station if they buy, for example, 20 heads of cabbage, but only want 5. And Rural Action invites buyers to donate to Donation Station when they check out at the end of the evening. And that is it, community nourishing community. We're constantly training volunteers and interns to help at the Donation Station booth. We get to know our farmers market vendors, and our constant presence at the market means we can share our mission with a lot of individuals. And all of this comes together to help us cultivate a network of change makers. Here are some of the puzzle pieces that go into making Donation Station work well in this community. If you think something like CFI's Donation Station might work well for your organization or in your community, we would love to share resources and talk with you. So please email us to have a conversation or give us a call. Many thanks to the Food Systems Leadership Network for funding this work and for helping us share the harvest. Hope to talk with you soon. Okay, so that is Donation Station in a 3.5-minute nutshell. Community nourishing community, all based on this core belief that we can cultivate abundance when we share and take care of each other. We're going to talk a little bit about about how our model evolved into what it is today, because I think talking about some of the challenges that we've dealt with might bring up interesting things for you all to think about. And we might have some similar, or you all might have similar questions. We want to ask one more question before we jump into that. And Mary Beth, can you pull up, do you have one more poll to pull up?
Yep, I think it should have launched for folks. So this is an open-ended poll question, kind of knowing from the initial survey that many of you are already working with farmers and gardeners and already working in some of these areas. And now that you've seen that in a nutshell, just sharing comments about what challenges you anticipate or what challenges you've already faced in trying to do work like this. And we're not going to share these back out directly, but we are going to have some time toward the end of our session, and we're going to maybe try and address some of these or discuss some of these. So we're just collecting that input. So I see someone in the chat does not see the poll. It says it's launched on my end. Does anyone see it on their end? So if you are not able to see the poll and you would like to just answer that question directly in the chat, and you can do it to the whole group chat, or if you'd rather, you can send it directly to one of us and do a direct chat if you don't want to share that out. So yeah, if you're having any trouble accessing the pop-up, you can also answer that question that's up on the screen in the chat and just send it as a direct message or share it. Thank you. And I think, Susie, I'm going to leave this poll open for a little bit because it's a long answer question and people may want to type, but it's I think when you are ready, if you want to keep going, I can just keep this poll open for a couple of minutes as well.
Sure, that sounds good. So thanks for answering our questions and sharing your experiences. So the donation station model that we are currently operating under evolved as a result of responding to challenges and adapting to different needs and working to increase or improve the sustainability of the program. It started out as an individual collecting extra produce at the end of the Athens Farmers Market and distributing it single-handedly. So this individual, the Athens Farmers Market is pretty big. We have up to 70 vendors. So there's potentially a lot of produce that farmers wouldn't sell at the end of market. And like Mary Beth was saying, there's also exceptionally high rates of food insecurity in the area. And this individual connected that need and that resource and started distributing food. Then the donation station established a booth at the Athens Farmers Market to increase the supply of food by encouraging community members to donate, either donating money in our donation jar that we could then use to buy produce from the farmers, or encouraging people to buy produce from the farmers and donate it themselves to donation station. So this is our booth at the Athens Farmers Market. This is a picture of produce that we can get there. Having one person deliver all of that produce to lots of different partners wasn't sustainable, so we transitioned to distributing from one central hub. Something that I think is maybe unique for the donation station is that we don't charge or have a standardized fee that we ask people to pay to utilize the services. We do invite people to contribute by coming to us to pick up the food that we're providing. And that is an immense component of getting the work done, is being able to collaborate with this large network of people who help us share the food out and get the food out to the community. So now pantry partners or food access partners come to us and pick up. We have a really wide range of organizations that pick up from us. Another big change that happened was that we used to operate with a free choice setup, That transitioned in 2020 to boxing food for individual pantries, and that increased the amount of work and labor that goes into our distribution considerably. But it's allowing us to serve our food access partners better, I think, and improving those relationships. I'm going to let Reggie talk more about that. We have also diversified and increased our food sources. So here on the left-hand side, you can see the produce auction that was mentioned in the video. Having access to a produce auction has been really, really great here for Donation Station. And the produce auction is run by another nonprofit. They're a really close partner. On the right-hand side is a picture of essentially a gleaning service that we offer. We call it Harvest Hotline, and we'll go harvest produce that either farmers or community members don't think they'll be able to harvest or utilize. And then last, we have a program called Grow a Row, where we just invite any community member to plant like a row in their garden, or even just a pot of tomatoes. But everything that we're doing is encouraging community engagement and encouraging people to pitch in and share the harvest. Since 2020, things have continued to change. We've experienced, and we continue to adapt. And I am going to pass it to Reggie to talk about Donation Station kind of since 2020.
Thank you, Susie. I just want to touch on a few points on things that I went through in the past few years. Those include how we moved food, so moving food, strengthening the relationships through distribution and relationships with the people that we serve, supplemental purchasing and what that involved as we had to transition over the last couple of years, and then just what we do off-season and just pilot projects that we're working on. But moving food, there are a few different components to it. For one, our food outlets. I believe that generally we started just, working with pantries, but throughout the time we evolved to working with not only pantries, but governmental agencies like Jobs and Family Services, Children's Services, and then organizations like schools and libraries, everybody that, has access to different pockets of people throughout the communities that we serve. I think that's a big part because these people go to the doctor and they see a food harvest table and they're able to just pick up fresh produce, like Susie said, for free. Everything that we hand out is for free. And I think that allows people to understand that fresh produce can be affordable and convenient when you find the right places. One thing that we consider when we go through our distribution are our vehicles. We operate with a truck, a van, and a trailer. Each one of those provide their importance throughout the season, whether it's raining, snowing, or just hot outside. They all provide convenient space for particular ways that we transfer food. And then throughout COVID, we realized that the amount of food that we were procuring was more than the capacity that we could hold in our vehicles. So we did reach out to Rural Action, one of our community nonprofits around here. They were able to help us find ways to transfer food with their box truck and refrigeration. So that was a key part to making sure that one of our goals is to reduce our food waste. And so that became a very crucial role in the way that we're able to transfer produce throughout the week to different agencies and pantries. Distributions, like we said, those are weekly distributions. We have them on Tuesdays, but that allows us to weekly check in with each one of our affiliates to make sure that they're utilizing the food properly and they're being met at the need of the people that they serve. And then we do have some on-site distributions throughout COVID. Again, the influx of food and the span that we covered in our area reached out to several different counties. So there were times where we put on-call distributions, had them meet us at the produce auction or the farmer's market, or we would be able to deliver it out there to them. So just, again, finding ways to meet the pantry partners and food access affiliates at the need so that they can meet the people that they serve at their need. One thing that falls along also is storage space. We operate with with 2 pallet spaces, a walk-in cooler, and some access to freezers. So just having that available allows us to hold food for periods of time where, in some places it may have to be instantaneous. So you buy the food, you give the food. So just understanding the storage, the capacity of distributing, and the vehicles and the outlets that you have, I would say, are the basis of just making sure that it works. And strengthening our relationships every Tuesday. Every Monday we prep our bins, we prep food. And so Tuesday, we don't necessarily have to worry about that. And we're able to make these personal connections with the people that we serve. And that way we're able to engage, and we're not just, handing them food and moving them on. We want to make sure that we are as friendly and accepting as possible, because we're working together to make sure that people in our community get fed. So it's important to be able to make sure that they're able to properly serve and utilize the food that we're able to give them. Another way we strengthen our relationships are through site visits. At the beginning of the year, usually, and what we're trying to incorporate is mid-season site visits. In our site visits, we're able to go and meet them at their location to get an idea of the capacity that they have. What storage do they have? Are they able to store dairy products, or do they have places to store dry goods? And so just checking in with them and visiting them, and even sometimes volunteering with them to see and talk to the people that are receiving the food. That goes a long way, and that gives us an understanding of the value that we provide to the people of our communities. And then we do surveys. At the end of the year, we send out a survey just to check in, make sure that the season went well, to ask questions and follow up throughout the off season, and to make sure that we start the following season just as strong as we left it. Throughout the COVID situation, pandemic, we were able to do supplemental purchasing and contract spending. And what that entails is, we had large surplus of food. At the produce auction, food like corn can go for a dollar a dozen. And so people, especially during this time, felt obligated to donate. And so what we saw was a huge surplus of people donating and giving us food. And, it's hard to turn that away, because if that doesn't go anywhere, then where does it go? And so, that allowed us to do distributions to larger pantries and provide them with adequate amounts of food for the amount of people that they serve. If you live dealing with the library, you're probably serving, 10 to 15 people. But when you're dealing with those huge pantries, you're looking at 300 people. So that large surplus is suitable for them, and they can utilize it without it going to waste. And then during the pandemic, we had ready to serve meals, where our community would make meals and we would come by and distribute them. And they're already made, and they just went from the restaurant to the pantry or the partner that we served it to. One way we cultivated that throughout the COVID pandemic was a national program called Neighbor Loaves was developed, to which now we're able to put part of our program towards providing baked goods and supporting bakeries, again, supporting that local community, whether that's on either side, whether that's the distributing of food or supporting the local businesses that are also struggling throughout the COVID times. So Neighbor Loaves was produced to where we're still able to give out ready to serve meals to certain pantries and partners. One thing that we were able to also look into is things like processing and utilizing larger scale organizations such as the local universities. We have 2 in particular that we're able to utilize, and they're able to take things and process them and use them for educational purposes in the school system. And so providing that educational aspect to the community also complements the mission and the vision that we focus on. We have done community distributions where we've collaborated with people like Jobs and Family Services and Children's Services, to where we're able to contact our partners and they're able to contact their individuals and families, so where we can have a mass community distribution. And with that, we've done things with organizations like Ohio Health and Buckeye Health. And where that came in after COVID was we're able to build these relationships with farmers so that we're able to purchase and do contract purchasing for organizations who have a budget for food. And we're able to make sure that whether the food is available through us or not, they're still able to have that access through our contract purchasing. One important aspect of contract purchasing is through our winter spending and our winter programming. As you can imagine, produce isn't always readily available during the off season. And so we have to find ways to supplement those costs. In doing that, we have reached out to local farmers who practice off-season growing, and also, again, the universities who practice off-season growing. And we're able to connect with them, and so that we don't have to take a stop and halt our distributions throughout the off-season. And so that lets us stay in contact with our organizations year-round, just to pick back up in the springtime. That also does call for limited distribution with limited food. But I mean, as organizations develop this program, everything is going to be different, and we can utilize that, or you all can utilize that as you see fit. The last thing is one of our pilot projects is our collaboration with the strong supporter of CFI. He owns a farm, Rick Best, of Best Berries. He's on his way through retirement, and so he offered to donate part of his land. And so we're able to utilize that land to cultivate our own food and produce our own food. What that does is that allows us to supplement the spending, and also allows us to go to the farm and cultivate and grow our own food. That can go to any of our programs, like our mobile market or our Discovery Kitchens. That allows us to not have to utilize, because we are a nonprofit, not utilize money, but yet be able to provide it for ourselves, and still grow and still have that connection with our farmers and our vendors. That is pretty much the gist of distribution and donation station of what I work with.
And
Awesome.
I'm going to go Rig for a second and just ask, would it be okay to pause and answer a couple questions that popped up in the chat that are maybe like very topical?
Yes.
Wonderful. I can answer the first one. So one question that came up is, how are you funded? Not enough is the short answer, but we are primarily grant funded, and we do a lot of collaborative grants with some larger partners. So we're able to kind of get some sub-granted funds. We're pretty small administratively, so we don't have a lot of capacity to manage large grants, but we partner with folks that have more capacity so that we can really utilize those without stretching our administrative muscle too far. But the other piece for food purchase in particular, as you all kind of saw in that donation station video, there is a direct in, direct out model. So we directly collect money at the farmer's market that we spend immediately out. So our food purchasing money, like the money that buys the food that goes back out, is exclusively or nearly exclusively funded by individuals and small businesses or organizations. Churches donate, sponsors, local businesses. All the money that purchases food is sourced really from individuals that we spend back out, that are kind of core costs for things like space, storage, rental of vehicles. We do a good amount of grant writing for that. The second question here is, do those who are accessing the food have any say in what they're hoping to get? And probably either of you could answer that. I don't know, Reggie, if you want to talk a little bit about those pantry relationships and how you navigate that.
Sure. So in our surveys and in our check-ins, we do try to check in to see what food is utilized the most, what food is utilized the least. But when we go to the produce auction, we try to buy just what's available. And so it's sometimes hard to pinpoint specific things. Right now, we serve about 25 to 30 pantries, and to divide out each pantry and try to get an understanding of individualized orders is a little complicated. So it is more of a vast variety of things. But there are a couple organizations that we serve that are working with diabetes. And so those pantries, we try to have an idea of what not to give them, because if they can't give it to their patients, then it would go to waste. So to an extent, we do try to cater. We also know the staples, people like potatoes, corn, tomatoes, onions. And so getting those staple items, we do try to make sure that that's what's available. But even things like okra and eggplant, I never thought people didn't know what okra was until I moved to Southeast Ohio. And I'm like, okra is like one of the best things out there. And so what we do is we provide recipes. We go through and we try to provide weekly recipes for everybody, and for things that people don't know how to use. We also have other programming such as Discovery Kitchen and tasting tables that will allow them to be a part of an event to get the experience of understanding what other foods are out there. Because just because they haven't tasted it doesn't mean they don't like it. And so it's always worth trying.
Thank you. And there was also a question asking if we could talk a little bit more about the produce auction and how it works.
The produce auction, it's a very intriguing atmosphere. All the local farmers and vendors that want to participate, anybody, community, local gardeners can participate. What they do is they give you a number as a vendor and then give you a number as a purchaser. The auctioneer goes through and auction off each supplier's plot. And so whether that's one or two things or whether that's the entire line of things, but they go through and they auction it off. Everybody has the chance to bid. And we just go through the entire auction from one bidder to the next bidder, bidding on each item. Just a traditional regular auction, just with food.
And I think Reggie might have mentioned it's a social enterprise, this particular produce auction, but I think different versions of them, sort of run in different ways, exist in different places around the country. So you may have to do a little bit. Even people here, probably every week I talk to someone who's like, I didn't know we had a produce auction, and it's right next door to us. So they're like the best kept secret.
Can I just add
Please
a little
do.
bit to that? But one of the really nice things about the produce auction is that we can go and be present, and if there is a glut of a certain produce item, that drops the price on that item. And so that means that like CFI can purchase more produce at a lower price, and at the same time that farmer still gets paid something for that produce, even if it's not an ideal price. But it's a way we sometimes function as the floor cleaners at the auction, but it makes sure that the food is utilized.
And just to add on, I can't remember if we discussed this figure. It's a little tricky because it's not exactly one-to-one, but when we combine the spending that we do with the really generous donations that people make, we end up being able to supply fresh, local, lovely produce at an average cost of $1 a pound out to the community. So, sometimes we are purchasing it for more than that, but when we factor in donations, that's kind of how that averages out for us, which is a really great number to be able to share with people so that they know how far their purchasing donations can go. And I'm going to throw one more question that popped up in the chat, maybe to Susie. There's a question about how do we measure the success of the recipes and nutrition education programming specifically?
Oh, that's a really good question. Well, for a long time, the main way that we have measured any success associated with the donation station was just the pounds of food that we distributed. Success with recipes and nutrition education is something that we haven't captured success on that as much, except we did in 2020 transition. So before 2020, we were logging the number of tasting tables that we were doing and logging the number of people that we reached with the tasting table. And so we had a total for the year, like how many people we reached and how many recipes we shared. That all changed. Our tasting tables had to pause during 2020, and we transitioned to sharing everything online like a lot of people did. And so we've been able to gauge engagement with social media posts a little bit since 2020. Does that answer your question? I think measuring the success of our nutrition education is something that as an opportunity for growth at CFI.
I agree. Thank you. So we're this part, and this is sort of where we thought we'd go, right? We were like, we're going to present some information. We're going to have a little bit of back and forth. We want this to be fluid, but we definitely want to have a chance for at least a few minutes to hear back from you all. So I'm still learning how polls work. I can share out the results from the long answer poll. It seems like I cannot look at them without sharing them. So I'm going to go ahead and share this back out. I don't know how easy this will be to really see. Oh, all right. I don't know if we're going to be able to share that. So we'll kind of take a look at these after. We'll send people some follow-up information. I would love to hear, and people can put things in the chat, or you can unmute and speak. We would love to hear just kind of feedback, thoughts. Is anyone already doing something like this in your own community that like you could share your insight or your information on? Do folks want to share a couple things that they thought would be challenges? I know in the chat we were talking about aggregation, distribution, and physical infrastructure for sure are challenges that people would foresee, but just want to open it up a little bit for either in the chat or unmute verbal feedback from you all, because there's a lot of wisdom in this virtual room. Yeah, there's an idea in the chat here, measuring success, program-specific pre and post surveys. Yes, and we do, the one place I think we do that is in our youth programming when we're bringing veggies into schools for taste testing. So in that sense, we have some models that we might be able to apply to those community-based programs as well. That's a great idea. I will open it up a little bit wider. Any other comments or questions, either that you want to share with each other, that you want to talk about your own experience, or for CFI folks, any follow-up questions that you wanted to ask?
I'd be curious, actually, is anyone else on the call operating a similar type of program in their communities? All right, so okay, Katie Allen, sounds like you're doing something similar. Katie, if you wouldn't mind coming off mute for a sec, do you want to like share a little bit about any similarities or challenges that you've been facing that might resonate with the CFI folks, if you're able to?
Yeah, sure. My name's Katie. I'm AmeriCorps Vista for Kitsap Harvest here in Bremerton. They started as a gleaning organization, picking apples and plums and stuff and taking that to the food banks, but then realized the food banks is also trying to shovel those same plums out the door before they go bad. So instead of adding to their pile, we decided to start distributing directly to our partner organizations, so senior centers, recovery centers, youth and veteran programs, anybody who's low access needs that good fresh food. We're all about preventing food waste. Part of the way that we're doing that is with these donation stations. We've set up Our donation stations, we do have some at farmers markets, but we also have them hosted by community members, individuals at their homes. They have a table and a cooler set up for around the county, so that anybody can come to the one that's closest to them and drop off their garden produce. We're trying to really engage with the urban gardeners and the home gardeners, and collecting their produce, their excess, and using that for distribution. I think our biggest struggle right now, because it's a very new program for us, and I'm the first year of trying to help build this out. So is just trying to engage with the community, engage throughout the county, and create like a sustainable system in Kitsap County of everybody being able to feed each other with all of the good, fresh, delicious food that we're growing. I think our hardest thing right now is just getting people who can help us with those deliveries, help us pick up at those stations, and then getting the word out that this is an opportunity for people to learn more. We do intend to do, I think in the past, we've done a little bit more with the recipes and stuff. We're trying to, work more towards that, but yeah, we're kind of doing a similar setup. I've been taking lots of notes.
It's so exciting to hear that. That was one of the things we were most excited about, is we're like, we know things like this must be happening other places, but it is a particular spin. It's like not exactly food rescue. It's not exactly, like it's a very particular kind of version of those models. So that is super exciting. And there's people in the chat sharing things. Kelly's talking about a community food assistance program that uses grant funds to pay farmers for produce that is being distributed through partnerships with senior centers, which is so cool. The Chicago Food Sovereignty Coalition Neighborhood Mutual Aid cohort doing aggregation and redistribution. We love to talk about how this is working in urban versus rural areas. That's wonderful. We'd hope to have some more exchange on that. And then in Western Washington, organizations that facilitate direct farm to organization. And a few things that do seem to be popping up in this is that aggregation, transportation, distribution piece of the puzzle is huge. And we still are navigating that in our own space, because, we serve, even within our county, we have programs that are, close to 45 minutes to an hour driving away. We have really benefited from having a partnership. We have ACENET, the Appalachian Center for Economic Networks, is like a business incubator, shared kitchen, shared warehouse. So they do primarily work with food-based businesses, but we rent space within that. So we don't have to maintain our own warehouse, our own walk-in, our own loading dock, which we could not do, but we rent space through like a shared community facility that lets us have some of that. With that, we're still bursting at the seams and our cooler's packed too full, and we need to figure out how to expand. So, but I think Jonathan's on this call too. Folks piloting, it absolutely started out with just a person in a truck who was delivering immediately after market. So that idea of starting there and kind of building up capacity and figuring out what pantries can store and navigating those relationships. The other question that was here that I just didn't want to lose is whether there was like a needs assessment done before implementing programming, any kind of pre-program research. I might be able to talk about that a little bit, but I would turn it over to Susie and Reggie, who have a little bit of a longer historical memory, if you wanted to address that question at all.
The assessment that we have done since I've been at CFI is through surveying the surveys, the pantry surveys that Reggie was talking about, and the site visits. So just having conversations with the pantry partners and asking them directly how much use they have for fresh produce and how much fresh produce they think that they can need. And then another statistic that we're just always keeping tabs on are food insecurity rates here. Do you want to add anything, Reggie or Mary Beth?
That's pretty much how I've been able to do it. I've been able to volunteer with a few of our organizations. So being able to grasp that understanding and talk to the people face to face and and get an understanding of where these people are coming from, because it may take us 45 minutes to an hour to get to that location, but the people who are coming out from so much further sometimes. So just understanding the lay of the land is a huge part of it.
Thank you. And the only other thing I'd add to that is I think CFI as an organization has been really responsive and locally based. And so CFI did, like, Donation Station did not start out as the first thing we did. It was very originally going to be a producers association within another organization. And then there was a time when they were really focusing on garden establishment, right? So some of it is less that formal research and more just that idea of as you're embedded in the community and you're out and you're talking to folks, kind of like Reggie and Susie are saying with the pantry partners, you hear about needs, you start trying some things, and then they kind of end up getting rooted, no pun intended. There's a few other great things in the chat, a link to folks who are growing food to deliver to food banks in Jefferson County, Washington, with some names there. Feeding Illinois Farm to Food Bank pilot, and there are some initial results. That is awesome to see. So yeah, please keep those pieces in the chat coming. Wildly enough, we are almost out of time. And we did want to talk a little bit just about next steps and some resources that we have available. So the nice thing about this is meant to be a kickoff and not the end of the conversation. So I'll talk a little bit more about how we can continue this conversation together. Susie, would you? Oh, I guess we don't have a slide for this. I'm gonna share my screen. So after this webinar, we will be following up within the next day or two with all of you. If you registered, we have an email address for you. And there's also going to be an evaluation at the end of this where you'll have a chance to give us an email. And we are going to reach out and offer folks the chance to work with us to have one-on-one or small group follow-up conversations. Because as we're hearing and seeing it so exciting in the chat and the comments, like, this is not a best practice type thing where you just take a program and plop it wherever, right? It's all about what is locally, what are the needs, what are the resources, what are the connections. So our goal is to really just be a sounding board for folks and facilitate conversations, share what we've learned, and give you a chance to talk with each other. So we're going to have an opportunity to have some follow-up conversations, and we're going to send out emails that are going to allow you to sign up for that. The other thing that I am super nerdy excited about is with that follow-up email, let's see. Can you all see my screen now? Great. You're going to get a link to this, we call it a seed kit. It's not quite a toolkit. And what we've done is tried to just collect in one place, and huge props and thank you to Susie for pulling this together and Reggie for developing and fine-tuning these resources. You'll have access to a space where you can rewatch or share that short video that we shared in the beginning. And then we've definitely over time developed wild, spreadsheets where we're tracking food in and out and donations. Things like the MOU that we use with pantries, so you can see like the way that we talk about that partnership and what we ask them to do and what we commit to doing. Things like the form that we use to track donations and purchases at our farmers market, right? We think we have some resources there about produce storage, how we work with the auction. So none of these are probably going to be plug and play in your own context, but we figure as opposed to reinventing the wheel, you can see what we've developed and then feel free to take them and use them and adapt them to your own places and your own context. So our ideal is that we'd love to have a conversation with everybody after this, but either way, or additionally, we want to be sure that we're sharing the resources we've developed, and what we really would like is for that to be at the beginning of the conversation and exchange. We want to learn from you. We want to see what you've developed. We want to kind of create a network of this work where we can be sharing best practices and learning from each other and collaborating. So we're super excited about those next steps that we are going to make, hopefully available to everybody who responds and follows up via that email. And I want to really quickly, Reggie and Susie, anything else that you wanted to mention or add or closing words before we turn it right back over to Annalena to wrap us up?
Just thank you to everyone who attended today. It was really fun to hear what other people are doing. I think that's the most inspiring thing about sharing this work, is learning that other people are doing related things. So thank you. And looking forward to future conversations.
Yeah, thank you all. And one thing that I don't think we really touched on too much, but the use of our Comm Corps and our volunteers and interns it's very crucial and strong to how we're able to be a part of this community. So if you are a volunteer or a Comm Corps or AmeriCorps, or you have them, value them, appreciate them, love them. They do a lot of work for the work that we do in nonprofits.
Yeah, thank you for lifting that up, Reggie. Yeah, we have 5 employees at CFI, only 2 of which are full-time. So we have a lot of volunteers, national service members and partners that make this work possible. Yeah, and thank you all so much. And thank you to Annalena and Melody and the Food Systems Leadership Network. And I'm going to turn it back over to you to close us out.
Yeah, wow. Thank you guys so much for sharing all of that information and that amazing seed kit. It was really neat to hear what you guys have been doing out there in Ohio, and really cool to see all the different program ideas that are coming through the chat box. So thank you all so much, Reggie, Mary Beth, Susie, for sharing the hard work that you all have been doing so freely with everyone. And thanks to everyone on the call for joining today. I am going to quickly drop in a little evaluation survey. If you're able to just let us know how it went, what you learned. Always taking this information to create new opportunities. And I think, yeah, as Mary Beth said, there'll be some follow-up emails with the resources and opportunities to connect in a more like consultation, one-on-one type of one-on-one type of call with these 3 stellar folks. So with that, thank you all so much and have a wonderful rest of your day. So I'm going to pause the recording.